Hello, everyone. Good morning. Live every day for God is not just a religious phrase, it is a way of life. It means waking up each morning with purpose, knowing that your life is not an accident and your breath is not random. Every day you are given is a gift, and every gift carries responsibility. When you live for God, you stop asking only, "What do I want today?" and you begin asking, "What does God want to do through me today?" That single shift changes everything. Living every day for God begins with a simple but powerful decision, choosing purpose before pleasure. The world constantly encourages us to chase comfort, enjoyment, and instant satisfaction. It tells us that happiness comes from having more, doing more, and pleasing ourselves first. But a life built only on pleasure is fragile. Pleasure fades, circumstances change, and what once excited us eventually leaves us empty. Purpose, however, gives life depth, direction, and meaning, even when things are difficult. When you live for God, your life is no longer driven by what feels good in the moment, but by what is right in the long run. Purpose gives you a reason to wake up each morning with intention. It reminds you that your time, talents, and opportunities are not accidents, but gifts entrusted to you by God. Living with purpose means asking yourself daily not, "What will make me happiest today?" but "How can I honor God with my life today?" That question reshapes your priorities and transforms ordinary moments into acts of faith. Choosing purpose over pleasure does not mean rejecting joy. In fact, it leads to a deeper and more lasting joy. Pleasure depends on circumstances, but purpose is rooted in truth. When your life aligns with God's will, you experience peace even in uncertainty and strength even in weakness. You begin to understand that joy is not found in avoiding hardship, but in knowing that your life has meaning beyond the present moment. Many people hesitate to live fully for God because they fear losing freedom. But true freedom is not doing whatever you want. It is having the strength to do what is right. Pleasure often enslaves, but purpose liberates. When you surrender your desires to God, you are not giving up your life. You are discovering it. God does not call you to a smaller life, but to a fuller one, shaped by love, discipline, and eternal perspective. Living with purpose also brings clarity in times of decision. Life is full of crossroads, and without purpose, it is easy to be pulled in every direction. When God is at the center of your life, your choices become clearer. You begin to measure success not by applause or achievement, but by obedience. Even when your path is challenging, you can move forward with confidence, knowing that God is guiding your steps. There will be moments when pleasure seems easier than purpose. There will be days when doing the right thing costs you comfort, approval, or convenience. But those moments are where faith is strengthened. God honors obedience even when it is unseen. What you choose in private shapes who you become in public. A life lived for God is built quietly, one faithful choice at a time. When you choose purpose before pleasure, your life becomes anchored. You are no longer controlled by emotions, trends, or temporary desires. You stand firm, knowing who you are and why you are here. And in that certainty, you find a peace the world cannot offer. Living every day for God means trusting that His purpose for your life is greater than any pleasure you could ever chase, and that in serving Him, you discover the truest and deepest fulfillment of all. Living for God is not limited to attending church on Sundays or reading the Bible occasionally. True living for God is revealed in the small, everyday choices we make. Choices that shape our character, influence others, and demonstrate our faith. Faith is not only about believing in God, but also about acting on that belief in every area of life, even when no one is watching. Every decision, every word, every action becomes an opportunity to honor Him and to reflect His love to the world. Faith in daily choices begins with awareness. It begins with understanding that life is made up of countless moments, each with its own opportunities and responsibilities. When you live for God, you see these moments not as ordinary or insignificant, but as sacred chances to align your will with His. Simple actions like showing patience to someone who frustrates you, offering kindness to a stranger, or speaking truth in a difficult situation become acts of worship. Faith grows when we recognize that God is present in all things, from the monumental decisions to the smallest details of daily life. Living for God through daily choices also requires consistency. It is easy to be faithful when life is smooth, when the rewards are visible, and when others notice our actions. True faith, however, is proven in ordinary, unseen moments, when no one applauds our decisions, when challenges test our resolve, and when we must choose right over convenience. The world may reward success, recognition, or popularity, but God rewards obedience, integrity, and a heart devoted to Him. Every choice to act according to His principles strengthens our character and draws us closer to Him. Another vital aspect of living for God daily is surrendering control. Life is unpredictable, and circumstances often challenge our plans and desires. In these moments, we are faced with choices. We can react in anger, fear, or frustration, or we can choose faith and trust in God's wisdom. Choosing faith does not mean ignoring problems or difficulties. It means approaching them with a mindset that God's purpose is greater than our temporary struggles. Each decision to trust Him, even when the path is unclear, is a demonstration of living faith in action. Living for God also means reflecting His love in every interaction. The choices we make and how we treat others, how we speak, and how we respond to challenges communicate more about our faith than words alone. Faith is not theoretical, it is relational. It is shown in our patience with difficult people, our generosity to those in need, and our willingness to forgive. Daily choices rooted in faith have a ripple effect, influencing family, friends, co-workers, and even strangers in ways we may never fully see. Finally, living for God in daily choices leads to transformation. Faith is not static. It grows, develops, and changes us over time. Each decision to act with integrity, to show love, and to trust God contributes to becoming the person He created us to be. Life becomes less about following trends or seeking approval, and more about living with purpose, honesty, and devotion. Our choices become a testimony of God's presence, showing that a life surrendered to Him is a life of meaning and impact. In conclusion, living for God is not limited to grand gestures or rare moments of inspiration. It is revealed in the faithfulness of everyday decisions. When we choose God in our daily choices, through patience, kindness, integrity, and trust, our lives reflect His love and power. Faith is proven not in what we say, but in how we live, moment by moment, day by day. Each small choice to honor God becomes a step in a life fully devoted to Him, a life that influences others and glorifies the Creator in ways that last far beyond a single day. True strength is not measured by physical power, wealth, or influence. Real strength is revealed when we surrender, when we lay down our pride, our plans, and our fears and allow God to guide our lives. Surrender is often misunderstood as weakness, but in reality, it is the ultimate act of courage and trust. To surrender to God is to admit that we do not have all the answers, that our understanding is limited, and that His wisdom and timing are perfect. Living every day for God means recognizing that surrender is not the end of our journey. It is the beginning of a life filled with purpose, peace, and divine strength. Many people struggle with surrender because it feels like giving up control. We want to direct our own lives, make our own decisions, and ensure that things go according to our plans. Yet, time and again, life shows us that control is an illusion. Circumstances change, people disappoint us, and outcomes are often uncertain. When we cling to control, we carry a heavy burden of worry, frustration, and fear. Surrender releases that burden. It is an acknowledgement that God is sovereign and that His plans for our lives are greater than anything we could imagine for ourselves. Surrendering to God also requires humility. It means admitting that we are not self-sufficient and that our strength alone is insufficient for the challenges we face. Humility allows us to lean on God's power instead of relying solely on our own. It teaches us to be patient, to wait for His timing, and to trust that He knows what is best. When we approach life with humility, we discover a deep and abiding peace that the world cannot offer. a peace that comes from knowing that our lives are held in God's capable hands. Living every day with surrender brings freedom. When we let go of our need to control everything, we make room for God to work. We open our hearts to His guidance, His opportunities, and His blessings. Freedom comes not from doing whatever we want, but from trusting that God's will is perfect and that His plans are designed for our ultimate good. Surrender transforms fear into faith, anxiety into trust, and uncertainty into hope. It allows us to move through life with confidence, knowing that we are not alone, that God is directing our steps, and that His strength is made perfect in our weakness. Surrender also empowers us to act with courage and obedience. When we trust God fully, we are willing to step out in faith, even when the path is unclear. Surrender does not mean passivity. It means aligning our actions with God's will, even when it challenges our comfort or understanding. Each decision to follow God, each choice to obey His guidance demonstrates a life strengthened by surrender. We become vessels of His love, patience, and wisdom, and our lives bear witness to His power working through us. Moreover, surrender brings transformation. It changes how we see ourselves, others, and the world around us. A surrendered heart becomes compassionate, patient, and humble. It allows us to forgive more easily, to serve more willingly, and to live more faithfully. Surrender does not remove challenges from our lives, but it equips us to face them with divine strength, knowing that God is with us every step of the way. In conclusion, living every day for God requires surrender, not as a sign of weakness, but as a source of true strength. It is the conscious choice to trust God with our lives, to release our fears, and to follow His guidance wholeheartedly. Surrender opens the door to God's power, peace, and purpose, transforming ordinary lives into extraordinary testimonies of faith. When we surrender daily, we discover that strength is not in holding on, but in letting go and allowing God to lead. In a world that constantly measures success by wealth, status, and recognition, God calls us to a higher standard. He teaches that what truly matters is not what we achieve, but who we are becoming. Living every day for God means prioritizing character over success, understanding that our values, integrity, and moral choices define us far more than our accomplishments. While the world rewards the visible and tangible, God treasures the invisible qualities of the heart: honesty, humility, compassion, and obedience. These qualities shape a life that is not only meaningful, but also eternal in impact. Character is revealed in the choices we make when no one is watching. It is easy to act with integrity when it benefits us or when our actions are visible to others. True character, however, is proven in private moments, in decisions made quietly, when no applause or recognition is present. Living every day for God requires that we consistently choose right over convenience, truth over compromise, and love over selfishness. Each small choice, repeated daily, builds a foundation of character that cannot be shaken by circumstances, criticism, or failure. God does not call us to a life free from challenge or adversity. On the contrary, the cultivation of character often occurs in difficult seasons. When faced with trials, we are presented with choices that test our patience, our honesty, and our faith. In those moments, choosing to honor God rather than conform to the world's standards strengthens our character. These choices, though sometimes uncomfortable, teach perseverance, resilience, and trust in God's plan. A life focused on character rather than worldly success is a life that can withstand the storms and remain anchored in faith. Living for God means understanding that external achievements are fleeting, but character has lasting value. Money can be lost, fame can fade, and accolades can be forgotten. But a life built on integrity, kindness, and obedience to God leaves a legacy that transcends time. People may not remember the awards we earned or the positions we held, but they will remember the way we treated them, the encouragement we offered, and the faithfulness we demonstrated. God measures our lives not by our resume, but by the heart behind every action. Character also shapes our influence in the world. A person who consistently lives with integrity and humility becomes a light to others. Their decisions inspire trust, their words carry weight, and their actions reflect God's love. Success achieved without character, however, is often hollow and unstable. Without a strong moral foundation, achievements can be fleeting and relationships shallow. Living every day for God ensures that our influence is positive, enduring, and rooted in truth. Moreover, prioritizing character over success requires intentionality and self-examination. It calls us to pause and ask daily questions. Are my choices reflecting God's values? Am I acting with honesty and love, even when it is difficult? Am I seeking recognition for myself or obedience to God? These reflections guide our decisions, align our actions with our faith, and reinforce the importance of character in every aspect of life. In conclusion, living every day for God is a call to value character above worldly success. While society may measure us by achievements and accolades, God measures us by the quality of our hearts and the integrity of our actions. Each decision to act with honesty, humility, and love builds a foundation that endures beyond wealth or status. A life centered on character becomes a life of true significance, a life that honors God, influences others positively, and leaves a legacy that lasts. Choosing character over success is not always easy, but it is the path to a life fully devoted to God, rich in purpose and blessed beyond measure. Living every day for God does not mean living a life of perfection. In fact, it is impossible for any human to live perfectly. God does not expect perfection. He expects faithfulness, humility, and a willingness to walk with Him. Living for God means embracing His grace in every moment, understanding that His mercy is new every morning, and allowing His forgiveness to guide and transform our lives. Grace is not just a theological concept. It is the practical power that enables us to keep moving forward, even when we fail, stumble, or fall short. Grace begins with recognizing our limitations. We are imperfect beings, prone to mistakes, selfishness, and sin. If we tried to live for God solely on our own strength, we would quickly become discouraged and defeated. But God's grace meets us where we are, covering our shortcomings and giving us the strength to rise again. Each day becomes an opportunity to receive His mercy and to reflect it in our actions, choosing love, patience, and forgiveness over bitterness or resentment. When we embrace grace, we stop being trapped by guilt and shame and begin living in the freedom that comes from God's unending love. Living under God's grace also teaches us humility. It reminds us that our achievements are not solely the result of our efforts, but the result of His guidance and blessings. Every talent, opportunity, and blessing is a gift from Him, not a reward for our perfection. Recognizing this truth changes our perspective. We begin to rely more on God and less on ourselves, understanding that His grace is sufficient for every circumstance. Humility opens the door for transformation, as it softens our hearts to God's leading and allows His Spirit to shape us into the people He intends us to be. Another essential aspect of grace is forgiveness. We all make mistakes and we all hurt others, sometimes knowingly, sometimes unknowingly. Living for God means extending grace to ourselves and to others. Forgiveness is not optional. It is a reflection of the grace we have received from God. By forgiving, we release the burden of anger, resentment, and regret. We create space in our hearts for God's love to flow freely. And we demonstrate to the world the transformative power of His mercy. A life lived with grace is a life that heals, restores, and inspires. Grace also empowers us to persevere. Life is full of challenges, disappointments, and moments of doubt. Without God's grace, these obstacles can overwhelm us, leading to discouragement or despair. But with grace, we find strength to continue, knowing that God's love is unwavering and His help is always available. Every setback becomes a lesson, Every difficulty an opportunity to trust him more deeply, and every trial a chance to rely on his sustaining power. Grace reminds us that we are not alone and that God's presence is constant, guiding us through life's uncertainties. Furthermore, grace shapes how we live daily. It influences our choices, our words, and our actions. A person living under God's grace treats others with patience, kindness, and mercy, understanding that everyone is on a journey and in need of compassion. It allows us to act with integrity even when it is difficult, and to love others even when it is undeserved. Grace transforms ordinary interactions into moments of divine impact, where God's presence is revealed through our attitudes and behaviors. In conclusion, living every day for God requires walking in his grace. It is not about being perfect, but about being faithful, humble, and open to his mercy. Grace empowers us to forgive, to persevere, and to love more deeply. It allows us to rise after failure, to trust in God's plan, and to live with confidence that his strength is sufficient for every challenge. A life lived under God's grace is a life of freedom, peace, and transformation. A life that reflects his love to the world and brings glory to his name. Embracing grace daily is not only a path to spiritual growth, but also the key to living every day fully for God. When we choose to live every day for God, our lives become more than just a series of actions or events. They become a living message. People may not read the Bible, attend church, or listen to sermons, but they watch our lives closely. Our choices, our words, and our behavior speak volumes about what we believe, what we value, and whose presence guides our hearts. Every act of kindness, every moment of patience, every decision to act with integrity is a testimony to God's love at work within us. A life lived for God is a message that transcends words. It communicates truth, hope, and faith through example. Your life is often the first encounter others have with God. In many cases, people may never hear a sermon or read scripture, but they do see how you respond to challenges, how you treat others, and how you carry yourself in daily life. Living for God turns ordinary moments into opportunities to demonstrate his presence. When you show compassion to someone in need, when you offer encouragement to the weary, or when you act with honesty even when it is difficult, your life becomes a reflection of God's character. Your actions speak louder than any words, and they can draw people to God in ways you may never fully realize. Living as a living message also requires intentionality. It is not enough to believe in God priva. Telly, our faith must be evident in the way we live. Every choice matters, from the smallest decisions to the largest ones. How we speak to others, how we handle conflict, and how we respond to adversity all convey our priorities and values. By aligning our actions with God's principles, we create a consistent testimony that reinforces the message of his love and truth. Consistency builds credibility, and a life lived authentically for God inspires trust and respect. Moreover, a life that reflects God's presence brings hope to those around us. People are often burdened with struggles, fears, and uncertainties, and they look for examples of stability, courage, and faith. Your life, when surrendered to God, becomes a source of encouragement. Your perseverance in hardship, your kindness in the face of indifference, and your forgiveness in moments of hurt testify that God is real, active, and powerful. In this way, living for God is not only about your personal growth, it is about influencing the world around you positively and pointing others toward his love. Living every day for God also calls for humility. You are a vessel, not the source of the message. It is God's love, mercy, and guidance that speak through your life, not your own abilities. Recognizing this ensures that your actions are not motivated by pride, recognition, or approval from others, but by a genuine desire to honor God. When your focus is on him rather than yourself, your life becomes a purer reflection of his character, and your testimony becomes more powerful and authentic. Even small actions can carry immense weight. A word of encouragement, a simple act of service, or an honest confession can touch hearts and change lives. God can use ordinary moments and ordinary people to convey extraordinary messages. By living intentionally for Him each day, you allow God to work through you, transforming your daily life into a ministry of influence, hope, and love. In conclusion, living every day for God means becoming a living message. Your life communicates what your words alone cannot. Each action, decision, and interaction becomes an opportunity to reflect God's love and truth to the world. By living with intention, humility, and faith, you influence others, bring hope to the weary, and point people toward the Creator. Even the smallest acts, done with a heart surrendered to God, have eternal significance. Your life can be a message that speaks to generations, testifying to the power, grace, and love of God in ways words alone cannot express. Living for God is not just about belief, it is about being, and being a living testimony of His presence every single day.